So let me just explain again how today will work. So I've asked three people, and given that I've asked other people, I figured I should be the first guinea pig. So I will go first. And their instructions are, let us know how you came to faith. Aim for around about 5 to 7 minutes. And if you've got a bit of time left over, then let us know what your faith means to you. That's basically the instructions. Apart from that, I've asked everyone to let us know their favourite song and why it's their favourite song. And then some of those songs we will do live, and some of them we will do as music videos. That's really the format. So, by example, let me go first and testify. So this is my story. So I think by now I grew up Jewish, and I was actually, before ever really experiencing any kind of religion, one of my very first memories is when I was about 4 years old, and I can remember praying, which is weird because my family didn't pray, they weren't religious, and I wasn't yet in a school setting where I was used to prayer, but God called me into prayer very, very early. So my memory specifically is that I would pray, and then I would put it into a rocket ship in my mind, and then count down to 0, blast off, send it up, and then I could go to sleep. And sometimes I'd be so tired, I'd just say, God, you know what everyone needs, 3, 2, 1, 0, just to make sure I could finish before I actually fell asleep. Those were the days when it's easy to fall asleep, I guess. So the next important event, I guess, is when I was around 15, I was in the synagogue one day, and I felt like something was wrong inside of me. And I said to myself, I think, I've always had this 95% I believe in everything, but I've had this 5% doubt. What would happen if I switch it around in my mind? What would happen if I said, let's get rid of 95% of this and just hang on to 5%? And for the first time, it felt true to me on the inside. And it was like a rush. It was amazing and terrifying because, being Jewish was very central to my life. So I had to redefine myself. And so over the next 15 years or so, I looked at different things. So I looked at paganism, witchcraft. I looked at Native American, and a few other bits and pieces. And actually, interestingly, a lot of the theology is pretty cool. It's very nice and sweet, and there's a lot of truth in there. Even now, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of truth in there. But the practices always left me dry. They always left me like, yeah, there's something wrong here. This isn't quite right. So I kind of gave up on that, and then I really delved into the rock and roll lifestyle without going into details, but you can probably guess where I went with that. And then I guess I started to pull out of that around the time that I met my wife. And she was going to church. And I thought, well, if my family's going to go to church, I should at least give this a go. So I was really blessed to be allowed to be in the church band because it was really uncomfortable for me to be in a pew, but sitting behind a guitar was far more comfortable for me. And it also made me able to be in the space without feeling like I was weird because I was in the community without really belonging in the community somehow. But some people may relate to that. But I found a good space there. Interestingly, our pastor retired, a new pastor came in, found out I wasn't saved, kicked me out of the band. And then about 3 months later, he was kicked out of the church, and I got back into the band. So, I outlasted him. But at some point, and so I was really trying to find faith. I wanted to find faith. But I wasn't being successful. And lots of people were praying for me. I knew that, and praying over me. And I had a dream with Jesus came into my dream. And it's so Jesus-like. And at the time, I just dismissed, it's just a dream. But I was actually walking, and Jesus came beside. I mean, how Jesus-like is that, to just come beside you when you're walking, right? Rode Amadeus. And he went with me as we walked across the park to my primary school. And then he basically just delved into a rubbish bin and brought out something beautiful. something really meaningful, important out of the rubbish bin. Again, so much meaning in that for me, which, again, at the time I just dismissed. And then we went into the school, and he preached but he spoke to everyone. And the school was there, and he was speaking to everyone, and I was on the side. I wasn't part of them, and I wasn't quite with him. I was somehow separated. And he spoke, and everyone was kind of dumbfounded, and then he's like, okay, over to you, and he left. And then that was my dream, and I'm like, just a dream, leave that one. But, so you're Jesus-like. So, yeah, I was really searching, and I was researching, like literally reading apologetics. Apologetics means books that try to prove Christianity. And those are all good. But I, in myself, as a good scientific kind of Jewish boy, always managed to find some possible objection. Maybe there was a back door in the tomb, you know what I mean? Like there was always something I could come up with. It's not quite proof. And then at some point I thought to myself, I think I must be looking at this wrong, because God seems to be all about faith. And if I could prove God, then there's actually no need for faith. In fact, there's no room for faith where you've got proof. So how do you do this when you can't prove it, but the whole story is about faith? It just wasn't adding up. And then I realised that at uni, I'd actually done an arts degree. And in an arts degree, we don't have many facts. we have evidence. We have here's a bit, we tried this and that kind of works, and we've kind of tried that, and we put these together, and, so that's a different way of seeing things. It's a different overlay. And I thought, well, what's the ultimate of arts, I guess, is becoming a lawyer or perhaps a judge. And a judge has lots of pieces of evidence. He doesn't have absolute proof almost ever, he or she, pardon me. But they, in the end, have to make a decision somehow. And what they do is they work out what's most likely to be true. That was a massive change for me. So then I laid that over all the information that I'd gained. And I thought, is it more likely to be true or not that Jesus is who he said he is? And I thought, actually, yeah. Even though I haven't got 100% truth, I think it's more likely to be true than not. That's my moment of conversion. It wasn't a crisis. It wasn't a feeling. It wasn't like a big bada boom. It was just this very quiet moment of, I guess it's more likely to be true than not. And then I guess that must mean I'm a Christian now, because I believe. Then God showed up. Then all kinds of things. Then I saw miracles, and then I started crying for no reason, and that kind of stuff, and just feeling stuff, and it was wonderful. But none of that happened before I had accepted that Jesus was who he said he was. So that's my story. That's how I came to faith. And a few things have happened since then, but that's the bit I wanted to share. So now my song. So this song is from the very first church, the church where I was saved. And probably appropriately, it's not a big banger. It's not one of those woohoo, like heavy, in fact, maybe a few of you might know it, but it's not a well-known song. It's just a pretty little ditty, but it spoke to me. It's always been a song that's just spoke to my heart and moved me, and I think that's all that matters. And one of the lines in this song says, I wish I could love you more, to God. And that blew my mind. It's like, wow, doesn't it just happen? And how do you long to be loving more? And it's ruminated with me, and I totally get it. The gift that we have in knowing God is the gift of loving. Because when we love, it's us that are doing the loving. We're the ones that are feeling. We're the ones that are experiencing it. If somebody else loves you, it's nice, but maybe not nice. You might even not like that. It's when you love that you really get the benefit of the experience of loving. And so this woman, I think, that wrote this song, I actually don't know if it's a woman or a man, but it was a woman that first sang it to me, is saying, I want to love you more. And I love it. That's the thing that made my hairs on the back of my neck stand. So We don't know it as a band, but Ash has been through about 2 minutes of it with me, but he's brilliant, so he'll be fine. So I'm just going to play that for you with Ash accompanying me. So
please forgive me, I don't do public speaking, so I'm shaking. And I was asked quite late yesterday afternoon to do today, so if it's not really well written out, I apologise. But I don't have, I guess you could say, an exciting testimony. It's not anything dramatic, it's not anything sort of big and elaborate. I grew up in a Christian home. I first attended church when I was only 2 weeks old. I've attended Sunday school regularly, went on all the church picnics, family camps, kids camps, you name it. Attended a Christian school from year 4 onwards. And at the age of 12, I don't specifically remember what led me to making the decision to be baptised and publicly declaring my trust in God. But I think based on what I'd heard right from a very early age, that God must have been good. And I don't regret that decision, making it so young. In some ways, I kind of wish I had held off till I was a bit older. But I've actually found that my growth and trust in God's really developed since I've actually moved back to Perth after marrying Dan back in 2007, joining this church, and even more so even after having the kids. And most of you know of my journey that I had after Emily was born. And I think that scenario and that area has actually what's really grown me to be a Christian and basically be who I am today. So I'm actually going to use that as basis of my testimony. Because when Emily was born, not all of you will know, but it was the most traumatising time of my life. I actually didn't think I was going to get through both physically and emotionally. Emily was born at 33 weeks, so 7 weeks prematurely. I was in ICU myself for about 4 days. I required further surgery and I had multiple blood transfusions. Since then, I've gone through around 13 hernia surgeries and other surgeries as complications from those, all the while studying nursing, because I wanted to give back. I wanted to help people. And having multiple hospital admissions with 2 small children is no easy feat. I've also since been diagnosed with Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, which is a connective tissue disorder, which explains the hernias, and fibromyalgia. So I've been through lots of really difficult times, and I started to question my faith. I started to think it wasn't real. I was starting to ask questions like, why me, and why has God let these things happen? I started to always feel really anxious about what might happen, and even to a degree some sort of depression and post-traumatic stress. And as I said, my testimony is now this. I feel now that even though I went through those hard times, God had me in his hands. He had a plan for me. I couldn't see it, but he must have had some reason for me to go through all that. My faith was challenged, and it still is, but I'm always reminded of how amazing our God is. I'm constantly in awe of his creation, and lately, the one thing that's really struck is the beautiful clouds. I have posted them on Facebook recently because that's God's creation. His beautiful artwork is just a constant reminder for me. I'm in awe at the fact that God actually protected Emily during that time. She was born early. I didn't know what was going to happen with her being born early. She was in the NICU for 3 weeks. She had respiratory distress at birth, which required ventilation. But now she is 10 years old, fit as a fiddle, competitive gymnast doing 14 hours a week of training and doing competitions and excelling at school. So God's truly looked after her, and for me that is one big way of God reminding me that even though I went through a really difficult time, God's brought out a blessing, and I'm so thankful for that. And I'm thankful that I'm the one that had the complications and not Emily. And whilst I'm still dealing with health issues now as a result, I still have hernias and I still have chronic pain, I can see that God loves me, and I know he chose me and he loves me despite all my brokenness. I know this isn't necessarily a testimony of how I came to know Christ at the start, but this is where I feel my relationship with Christ has strengthened. I have moments where I do struggle with and have issues with anxiety, and knowing that I have all these health issues and what's going to happen next, and I've got to remember that God's in control. He's got me, and I'm really thankful for everyone in this church as well who's helped me through that. But I'm going to move on through to the next, and I find that being involved with this church as well, like I haven't played for a while because just haven't been able to. God's called me to help Dan more with the kids as well, and so I feel that I can actually give back to the church and to God and what He's done for me. But there's a song that's on the radio at the moment, written by Jeremy Camp. It's called Anxious Heart. And I actually feel that this song was actually written for me. I thought, when I first heard it, I thought, is he actually writing this song for me? Because I need to hear this. And whether I'm at home or in the car, because quite often I'll hear it on the way to taking Emily to gym, I start to tear up because it always hits so close to my heart, no matter how many times I do hear it. God's reminding me that He knows everything about me. He will hold my soul. He is the calm for my anxious heart because He is in control. And this is, at the moment, one of my favourite songs because it is a reminder of how God loves me, even when I'm down and feeling weak. He is my light when my world grows dark.
Whilst the boys are collecting the cup, we have a photo that is actually a photo of our next speaker at the time, around about the time that they were saved. And 5 brownie points for anyone who can guess who it is. Oh, some people know. Can't give it away. Would the owner of this picture please come up and share with us?
Yeah, that was a few years ago. But as we look at things do change. God works in different ways with everybody. He hasn't got a set pattern because each one of us is an individual with the one purpose that we might receive that gift of salvation. I was brought up in a Christian home. We had daily devotions at the table, at the meal time at night. Went to Sunday school once a fortnight because we had a car to go travel. My father had shared it with his brother. So it was only every fortnight we went to church. But also we did postal Sunday school lessons the other Sunday, which they helped us with. At the young age in Sunday school one day, the story of Jacob leaving home, and that night he had a rock as a pillar. And that's found in Genesis chapter 28. And I'll read it because it's better, it can explain it better than I can. Chapter 28 and verse 12. Meanwhile, Jacob left Beersheba and travelled towards Haran. At sundown, he arrived at a good place to set up camp and stopped there for the night. Jacob found a stone to rest his head on against to lay slow to sleep. And as he slept, he dreamed of a stairway that reached from the earth to the heaven, and he saw the angels of God going up and down the stairway. At the top of the stairway stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your grandfather Abraham and the God of your father Isaac. The ground you are lying on belongs to you. I am going to give it to you and your descendants. Your descendants will be numerous in the dust of the earth, and they will spread out in all directions, to the west, to the east, the north and the south. And all the families of the earth will be blessed through you and your descendants. What's more, I am with you, and I will protect you wherever you go. One day I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have finished giving you everything I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I wasn't even aware of it. And he said also, what an awful place it is. It is none other than the house of God, the gateway to heaven. Just think about it. The staircase, the Lord standing at the top. Jacob knew he wasn't good enough. He had been lying, cheating, deceiving his family and everything else. But here God was watching over him. He knew he wasn't good enough to meet God, and so did I. The Sunday school teacher, I asked how I might be made right with God so that I could walk up that staircase. That was over 70 years ago. And His promise to never leave me and provide and care for me is true. When I was 17, somewhere around that time, I committed my life fully to serve God, not knowing where that would take me. I finished my apprenticeship as a carpenter and joiner and left New Zealand for Kalgoorlie. The average rainfall where we were was about 80 inches a year to Kalgoorlie 10. To help build a boys' dormitory for 6 months, and that turned into 25 years. It didn't take 25 years to build that dormitory, which many things happened. When I married Doreen, we were like Joshua when he was going into the land of Canaan. And he was telling the people, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And He would honour him and He would direct our paths. God has been faithful throughout the years, through the bumps and the hollows, the mountains and the valleys. If I didn't have a problem, I wouldn't know that He could solve them. And each one of us has problems. The song I chose was Years I Spent in Vanity and Pride, caring not, my Lord was crucified.
Okay, people. Anxiety is my thing, and right now it's up there. So, Father, help me to just be and honour you. Okay, first of all, Jonathan, thank you for the opportunity to share and for the focused questions. They were really helpful, and it has been an interesting exercise to prepare what I'm about to say. Big picture, we're all part nature, part nurture, or part the genes we have inherited from our parents and our life experiences. And we can change. I went to Sunday school in the 60s. I learnt about Jesus. I learnt about the Bible. I went to a Catholic high school, and that was a huge learning curve for me because I'm not Catholic. I remember standing in front of this thing called a grotto, reciting Hail Marys. I didn't have a clue what it was about, but I survived. The influence of my parents, Sunday school and high school, certainly gave me a very strong sense of right and wrong. I was married in the 70s and we had 3 beautiful children in the 80s, but I was always searching. Terry and I attended an Alpha course in the 90s through Bedford, and the take-home message for me was, God wants to be in a relationship with us, but he loves us enough to give us choice. And I decided to give it a go. And I can say that what I was searching for, that space in my soul, was filled. But more importantly to me now is, what does my faith mean to me? And I can say, in all honesty, it's what keeps me going. I tend to be a glasses half empty person, and I worry. If there were medals handed out for worrying, I'd be a gold medal contender. Thoughts go round and round in my head, and they drain my energy. I'm more aware of that cycle now, and I have a prayer. Father, help me to just be with a thankful heart. Just be. Push the pause button, Linda. Thankful heart. Focus on the positives in my life. It lifts me and it enables me to keep going. What am I most thankful for? My belief in a loving and just God. He's in control, thankfully, because man is not. A song that has special meaning for me is Be Still, for the Presence of the Lord. The Holy One is here. Can we just have those words up, please, Beck? Be still, people. Press the pause button.